Are you ready to bop till you drop? Dead, that is.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Hi, I'm Mark Wallace. I'm the vocalist of Cartilage.
I'm Ria Wallace, but I go by Ria, and I'm the guitarist of Cartilage.
My name is Mike, and I am the other guitar player in Cartilage.
And how would you describe the music of Cartilage?
It's a blend of disgusting, maggot-riddled, gore-ripping flesh metal of sorts. An actual blend of Exhumed, Carcass influence, and maybe some napalm stuff.
Napalm stuff.
Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark basically covered it. I don't know, it's we're just taking the best Carcass riffs and rewriting them 1,000 ways, and combining it with some thrash and some old school metal too. We're all really big fans of really heavy metal as well as the more gross, grindy kind of 80s and 90s grindcore, as well as kind of the newer, more noisy gore stuff.
Maggot-bearing, flesh-eating, corpse, cesspool, rot, guts. It's
like Death Grind. AKA Death Grind.
And large portions of your sound are very much influenced by Carcass. Is that more or less what gore metal is?
For sure. It's definitely a lot of Carcass worship, Exhumed worship, Impaled worship, Napalm Death, Hemorrhage from Spain, all kinds of icky, ghoulish metal and grind and heavy metal as well.
So I've had a couple of the bands that you mentioned on this podcast, and you have a close relationship with Exhumed and Impaled in particular. I'm curious, wanted to run something by you because, you know, I grew up on Carcass at a time when Carcass was kind of leaving grindcore behind. And so a lot of modern, I don't know if you want to call it gore grind or death grind, seems to me much more in line with what Exhumed was doing on their first couple albums, and I guess what Impaled would have been doing on their first album, more than maybe Carcass, who always shifted from album to album and were always doing something different. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that's accurate as far as describing gore grind, or maybe your own particular sound?
Yeah, I definitely think you nailed it there. That it seems like the majority of gore grind is really influenced by sort of the '90s sound of Exhumed and Impaled, as well as the really early stuff of Carcass. Because, like, as you mentioned, I totally agree. Past symphonies, it really seems like Carcass, you know, shifted away from the gore grind sound, became, you know, a little bit more progressive on the next record, and a little more melodic record after that. So I definitely think you nailed it there. But I think our band in particular, we do really like all eras of Carcass, and when we do have our riffs that are a little bit more reminiscent directly of some Carcass records, we do kind of think of it in terms of like, oh, this is kind of a song riff, or this is kind of like a neuroticism riff, if that makes sense. So we like all of it, even though obviously those first few records really seem to be, I guess, the most distinctively gore grind Carcass records.
Do you guys want to answer that?
Also, taking a lot of the gore influence from Carcass, we hold true to the lyrics
And the thematics, and a lot of the more thrashy punk stuff definitely comes from like Exhumed and early Impaled.
And some of the humor in your music as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of the tongue-in-cheek stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the tongue-in-cheek stuff, I mean, Marky, your vocalist, could definitely speak to this more, but I feel like that's definitely influenced from Carcass, but also from like other, I guess, like early gore pioneers like Impetigo and Macabre, where it seems like they had a little bit more fun with kind of the serial killer, almost like cartoonish interpretations of some of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't take any of it serious whatsoever. I'm not like, oh, this one's about a Y-section surgery on a foul corpse in the morgue. It's more like, no, this is a corpse I'm gonna fart on and give it pink eye while it's dead. That's kind of like what I'm going for.
So maybe this is a good time to, as we're talking about what you're going for, what led you in this direction and why you guys decided to put Cartilage together?
Great question.
It actually started with the three of us.
Yeah.
At the very beginning. That was at the end or mid 2013. Mike and Ria have been dating for quite a while, so
We were only dating for a year.
At that point.
oh my
At the-
god,
at the-
that's so
At the point
weird.
that we started Cartilage.
Yeah, we should mention that we're a couple, both guitar players, Ria and I, and we've been together for 10 years now as of a few weeks ago, actually.
Mhm.
So I guess about 8 or
Does that make it easier or harder to do the twin guitar leads, that Carcass style twin guitar leads?
Well, at the moment, so for the longest time, I've been mostly just like a rhythm player, but more recently, I've been more inspired, especially on Mike nudging on it to do more leads. But at the moment, we don't do too many twin leads. It's mostly Mike.
I feel like the newer record, the EP that we put out, I guess a couple years back at this point, was when we started to incorporate that a lot more. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that is definitely Carcass inspired, and that's one thing. I think you guys will agree on that. Like, that's one element of Carcass I really love is like the harmonized melodic sections, and I think with that we can kind of feed in our influence from really heavy metal because we're really big Iron Maiden and like Merciful Fate fans. Right? We're really able to kind of, I guess, utilize that niche of Carcass to get more of that influence in there too, but still fit the extremity of the band. I think it's a really fine line, you know, utilizing kind of those rich harmonies between making them sound cool and interesting or a little hokey, I guess. But yeah.
Let's go back to the early days. When are we talking as far as you mentioned it was about
Yeah, I was
10
like
years
9
ago.
years ago, 2013. Mike comes over. Ria and I were living with one another with our mother at the time. And Mike, Ria, and I were just kind of like talking about getting like an Exhumed Carcass worship-y kind of band going. And I already had the band name in mind because I had it since like high school, which was like, I think at that time, maybe like 5 or 6 years previous. And I was like, yeah, let's make a song. And Ria had some riffs already, so I happened to have been like messing around with a drum program on the computer, and she just kind of laid down some riffs and recorded it. And Mike helped out with some riffs and leads, and I threw down vocals, and we demoed a little song. And Mike was like, "Oh, I know a dude who can do drums. He's sick. His name is Adam, and he's in this band called Ion." And a couple weeks later, Mike and I had a band together named Septicemia, and we played. Septicemia played with Ion at the Submission in San Francisco. It was like a local show, and we played with Adam's band Ion at the time. And when I saw that full blasting on stage, I was like, "That's the dude. That's the Master Blaster." So we asked him to. We were like, "Do you want to join our like Napalm Death / Carcass Exhumed Worship B band?" And he was like, "Dude, yes!" And that was kind of like the beginning. And I think the first jam between the four of us was the beginning of 2014 for Cartilage.
And those songs that you wrote with a drum machine, would that have been what ended up on the It's Necrotic demo?
That's basically, yeah.
More or less, that recording in particular was just a very like raw, rough thing. We were just trying to get a point across, like, this is what we want to sound like. And then It's Necrotic actually was recorded in a rehearsal space, and then later mixed and mastered by what was it, Jack Shirley. Yeah, and so that was 2014 when the first demo dropped. It's Necrotic.
Mm-hmm. But that was a lot of the songs we ended up just kind of messing around with and ended up writing kind of for fun on that drum program. But the ultimate release of It's Necrotic was recorded with real drums and just in a rehearsal studio, like Marky was saying.
Real drums, but did you have a bassist at that point?
We recruited someone named Drew, or Andrew. What's his last name? Souza. Andrew Souza. We recruited him after the first jam. And yeah, we had him for a while just before we recorded the first record, Dialect. But then he had to bow out. So we got our buddy Ryan to do bass on that. And then we were hunting for bass players after the record was recorded.
And when did you end up with Keenan?
Oh, Keenan.
So we had our bass player Clint Roach for a couple of years. He played with us mostly live from about 2017 to about 2019. And in the process of 2019, we were writing and demoing our second album release. And just before the release, for, his personal reasons, Clint had to step back because he had his other projects, which was understandable. So kind of last minute, we had asked Keenan, because Marky was jamming with him in another side project, and he was super duper down, and he learned the material lightning fast, which was very convenient. Yeah, because he had learned the material basically in November, and we recorded it in January, and he did such a killer job. And then from then he played his first and only show at the time, and then COVID happened.
So we spoke about this a little bit, but you guys have a bit of a relationship with Ross from Impaled and Matt from Exhumed. When did that start?
Those are like our best friends. We've known them since '93. No, I'm just kidding.
You're right.
Yeah.
So Ria and I were in a cute little brutal death metal band back in the day. I would say the early 2010s. And when that project was still doing its thing, we had played a show with Ghoul
We played a show with Impaled first.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We played with Impaled before we played with Ghoul. With Ghoul, and we kind of made the connection there. They noticed like, oh, these kids are playing death metal, cool. And then later, Cartilage, when it was being born, I hit up Sean like, hey, can you do a logo for my Carcass clone band, and he's like, sure. So Sean McGrath of Impaled did our logo, the very same one you see today, and yeah, it was just like connection after connection, playing more and more shows. And we just happened to be in the same area too. So I mean, that's the thing, is like all of Cartilage is Bay Area, so is mostly Impaled except for like one member. But yeah, that's how we made the connections, just like playing, opening up for Exhumed, opening up for Impaled, and just kind of like chumming it up with those guys.
And in the time, or at least around the time that you guys put out that first demo, there seems to have been a big resurgence in metal, and specifically death metal in the Bay Area. Is that fair?
Yes, that is so fair, because when we did the demo and everything, that's when Necrot was really gaining traction and becoming, road dogs. Mm-hmm. And, they helped a lot in the scene in general, like the US death metal scene. Necrot is just, they just did a really good job in like making a lot more newer metalheads out there, which is so sick, because it's paving the way for a lot of other bands too. I'm not trying to say like, without Necrot we have nothing, but it's like they definitely helped out a lot.
Definitely Necrot and like Vastum are like the hometown heroes,
Same thing to Phallus.
Yeah.
So you guys have a new album coming out very soon, but before we talk about that, I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about how songs come together for you guys and how they usually start.
It really depends. Sometimes it happens in the room when we're just jamming during practice. Most of the time it's Mike and I like riffing back and forth with each other. I'll come up with a basic idea and have like a couple riffs, and then we'll both either like input it a little bit on Guitar Pro and kind of mess with like a structure that way, or we'll just like play together in a room and sort of like work off of what each other has. And then we'll bring it into the room with Adam. Yeah, it really depends.
Mm-hmm. And at what point do Keenan and Adam start giving feedback? Do you guys already have like a basic structure?
So that tends to vary. It kind of depends on, I guess, what point in the process, like Ria and I feel like we need a little bit of help to finish an idea. Sometimes, and a lot of it is just us in a room messing around, with ideas kind of almost spontaneously, and then Adam will jump immediately kind of on a drum idea. Keenan tends to come in almost always towards the end, but Adam's pretty involved in the writing process too. He'll throw over drum fills and different beats over certain riffs that kind of help, I guess, like contextualize what might come next if we're in the middle of writing. But a lot of times too, there's been plenty of songs where Ria and I basically work it out completely on our own, come up with a rough structure, and then Adam puts his flair on it and then kind of helps flesh it out a little bit more. So, I mean, honestly, it really varies song to song, whether we're kind of hitting a roadblock or if we're able to kind of bring it out into creative fruition kind of on our own.
It sounds like the riff is the genesis of everything. Like you guys are really a riff band.
Yeah, that and
Absolutely.
farting in someone's general direction, either pissing them off or making them really like just like nauseous, and there's like, oh god, that tastes and smells like a riff, and then it just kind of comes out.
But yes, we are very riff based.
Well, as far as that goes, Mark, a lot of the songs, well, maybe just the song titles seem to be inspired by classic horror and gore movies.
Oh,
yeah. Is that where a lot of your inspiration comes from?
Yes. Each and every one of us in the band are gore hounds. We love our cheesy B-movie, Cronenberg, H.P. Lovecraftian horror stuff. Yeah. Romero stuff, just Carpenter, Savini, all the Raimi, all the good gore fellows. Peter Jackson, let's go.
Production.
Yeah, so a lot of that definitely like floods my head when I'm writing or trying to get a theme across when I'm hitting up a commission or when I'm commissioning artwork. But yeah, it's just a bunch of gory fun. Also, my dumb antics too. I kind of wrap that in there with tongue in cheek, fart joke stuff.
So it seems like a good time to bring up the new album, which is called The Deader the Better. And it will be your second full length, which will be coming out on May 13th through Creator Destructor Records. When did you guys actually start working on this?
We started working on these songs about like 2018. Yeah. I remember that's when we had like one of the first songs that we were definitely working on for sure. Yeah, and it took kind of a while because we were in the process of starting writing, and then I think it was like 2018 and 19 we were playing tons and tons of shows that were like awesome opportunities, but it took a little bit away from our writing just because we're planning and working and trying to accommodate for these shows. We're like, we need to really buckle down and get the shit done.
Yeah, we hit Europe in the summer of 2019 and played Obscene Extreme. And, that we just practiced our asses off before that. Even while practicing, we were playing shows. So it's like we were just playing show after show after show. And finally, when fall and winter of 2019 came down, we were like, fuck this. Let's just focus on the album. And book some time, and that's when we booked time with Harv at his studio for January 2020.
And we'll speak more about working with Matt Harvey. We spoke a little bit about Carcass as an inspiration, but also Carcass as a band that really changed from album to album, and at least from the outside, seemed like a band that wasn't afraid of taking chances with their music. When you were going into this album, did you have any ambitions to do something different from your previous album, or to move in new directions?
I mean, I think, at least speaking for myself, and I think the others would agree, that we were, I guess, just interested in expanding more in terms of, I think, really song structure and kind of leaning into a little bit more of those harmonies. And I think the ultimate result was actually kind of more of like a mid-tempo, pretty heavy record, rather than just being full blistering speed. Although we do definitely have those tracks in the coming record. But I think our focus was just really getting the most out of these riffs as we can, and assembling the song structures in such a way that would make them interesting and a little bit more thought out, rather than just kind of straight A-B kind of riffing and writing.
So if the first album was symphonies, would this be your necroticism?
I feel like that's fair.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Totally.
So I don't know if we have time to go into all the songs in depth, but I did want to mention the first song, Chopping Mall, just because that was a movie that I only found out about fairly recently because of another band that I interviewed. I'm assuming Slaughter Day at the Chopping Mall is directly influenced or direct nod to the classic 80s movie.
Actually, it's like it
Yes and no.
yes and no, because I think kind of only more recently, I guess since quarantine, Mike and I watched that for the first time. It's like about like it's about like
Robots, right?
robots and like it's about like like possess
Killer security robots
Exactly.
that
I think they go haywire, right?
start killing teenagers in a shopping mall.
exactly.
Fantastic.
It's I think Marky had come up with the title.
The title, I came up with the title because I was with my partner and we were in the mall and I was like waiting outside the changing room while they're like, trying on stuff. And I was like, it was literally a Saturday at the, shopping mall. And for whatever cheesy reason, Slaughter Day at that shopping mall went through my head. I was like, that sounds like a cool band or a cool title. And so we were like, in the process of making all the songs and stuff, I was like, oh, that's like a cool song title. I'm going to name it that. And no one ever said like, oh, no, you shouldn't. It sounds way too cheesy. I was like, oh, cool. It's going to stick. So it doesn't have to do with the movie.
I think I'm pretty sure we heard about the movie after we came up with the title.
Yeah.
And then we watched it and we're like, okay, this is awesome. Yeah.
There's just so many B movies, you can't keep up with them.
If you have a pun, it's a B movie.
Yeah, there's a
B horror movie from the late 80s.
So no killer robots in your song?
No.
Sadly, no.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry to disappoint. Next time.
Well, since we're talking about that movie, I should shout out Mike from VHS, who VHS are a horror-themed death thrash grind band who do a lot of B-movie, and he actually recommended the movie not that long ago. I'd never heard of it, even though I guess it's a little bit of a cult classic. But moving on, let's talk about some of the guys that you have guesting on the album and making contributions.
So we have a total of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guests. We have Matt Harvey doing guest vocals on I Skin You. Tom Draper on guitars doing a sick solo on The Casket Crawling Catastrophe. And then we have, this is the closing track to the album. And then we have Leon doing guest solo and vocals on Axe Scratcher. Terrible pun. We have both Sean and Ross from Impaled doing vocal guest stuff on the title track, The Deader the Better. I think that's all of them.
So let's talk about your guests. At least 3 of them were or are members of Exhumed, or part of that revolving lineup that Exhumed has. And you guys mentioned that you're all living around the same area, but beyond the previous relationship that you guys had with them and your relationship to them through the scene, was there any other reasons that you guys wanted them on this album?
I mean, they have distinct and awesome vocals and solos. So, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer for us. Also, it's kind of means a lot to each and every one of us in the band that they even said yes. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm going to ask them, and if they say no, I'm not going to be hurt because, hey, at least I asked.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that these dudes have been extremely supportive of us, and they've honestly been like big brothers, which is kind of funny because obviously we're pretty stylistically similar, so I think they'd be mad at us. But I think they're I don't know, they've been nothing but supportive and stoked. So it's been, I don't know, it kind of feels like they're having their endorsement or support is really encouraging, because obviously our music is directly influenced by a lot of what they've done.
Which I'd like to add really quick, when we were recording with Matt in the studio and we have a song, Gurgitor, the opening riff, Harv pointed out, he's like, oh yeah, that's Trokar riff. That's Leon's riff. You guys stole Leon's riff. Remember, it's like, we'll take it up with Leon.
I mean, I love Matt's bands, and I really enjoyed speaking to Matt. He's a great guy, but he's the last person who should be talking about ripping off another band.
Right? Am I right? But he was just, it's cool because like he's so not like offended. Like he points out his own verses. Oh yeah, this is a Sodom riff. Oh yeah, this is another Sodom riff. Oh yeah, this is a Sodom riff. And it's like, yeah, cool. Like he's totally like self-aware. Yeah, never catch yourself inside of a car with the windows rolled up after he's eaten Del Taco. Heads up.
So, speaking of Matt and being in a closed space with Matt, I think you mentioned this was actually recorded in the studio?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had you guys worked there before?
No. So the thing is, like, when we were in the talks of recording the album and we would run into Matt at shows, he kind of bugged us and was like, hey, so when are you looking to record? And we told him the kind of window that we were looking at. He's like, hey, so like we have like our studio in San Luis Obispo. He was saying like we pretty much have recorded like the last Exhumed album there, and we kind of want to experiment recording other bands to see how that goes. Him and Alejandro Cordero. And he was like, hey, how about you guys be like kind of the first guinea pig to sort of try recording there and see how that goes. And we're like, oh, fuck yeah, of course. No, we want to work with you. So yeah, that just kind of worked out. And yeah.
And had you guys worked with Alejandro before?
No, this was our first time recording with him, but we did known him from like shows in the local scene. And
yeah, we ended up working with Alejandro again at the same studio a few months later to record our EP. And I think we should probably note this to avoid confusion. Our Gourmet EP, which was already released a few years ago, was actually recorded after this record that is coming out now. We've been sitting on it basically since COVID because we wanted to make sure we could play shows and tour on it and support it and just kind of release something. So it's a little weird. It's released kind of chronologically out of order, but this record was the first time we went to their studio, Dark Corner Studios, and worked with both of them.
that, I think, was 2 originals and a cover, right?
3 originals and a cover, yeah.
3 originals and a cover. And were those songs, the originals, were they written in the same sessions as the songs on The Deader the Better?
No, we wrote those as soon as we were locked down in quarantine.
Back to the recording, we talked about Matt and Alejandro. Aside from recording in his studio, did Matt have any other feedback as far as the recording goes?
He was the producer, so he had a lot of really good input as to like, oh, the bass should be doing this rather than that, or oh, maybe you should try doing this instead of that with like the vocals, or maybe a riff or a lead or harmony. He put a okay amount of like input on not necessarily the structure but the arrangement.
Yeah, we consulted him with the structure. He had a few suggestions, but we for the most part kind of stuck with what we already had. We did end up sending him demos. He gave us feedback, but the most valuable input he really gave us was mid-tracking, talking about like kind of tiny little arrangement things, like if we had a little instrumental break, maybe having a certain instrument play that as opposed to the other. How we went about recording certain harmonies, maybe repeating certain things a little bit longer, and also guitar tones. So it definitely helped in sort of the creative effort of it, but more so when we're in the studio and less so kind of in the early writing processes. Even though he was involved, we kind of took a little bit more of the reins.
And did Alejandro also handle the mixing and mastering?
Yes.
Since this is the first time that you worked with him, what would you say he brought to your sound?
A very raw approach. It was like a very raw and also like heavy metal kind of approach to the record as far as engineering.
Raw in terms of like stripped down, like not a lot of ornamentation on your sound?
Yeah, I would say it was about getting really good, natural, kind of clear sounds, but ultimately in the final mix, kind of letting that be sort of the final statement, I guess, if that makes sense. Not a lot of like drum editing or really editing like the takes at all, keeping it pretty performance based, if that makes sense. And then just working with I think the solid recorded sounds we kind of ended up miking, if that makes sense, and dialing in. Not a lot of like, I guess, processing and mixing beyond what's kind of necessary for clarity.
The major difference I'm hearing between your previous recordings and this one is clarity. There's a lot more clarity as far as the instrumentation and being able to hear individual instruments. Would you say that's the case?
Definitely.
Now, is that something that you guys specifically wanted to have for this album?
Yeah. So when we recorded our first album, we recorded it live because we just recorded amps and guitars and drums all in the same room, all at the same time. So it was very, very raw, as well as just like the production or post-production with mixing and mastering. So with this album, we wanted definitely a lot more clarity and a little bit more kind of chainsaw guitar-y and really blasting drums, but just all with clarity to it to really put our point across, I guess.
Yeah, like I would say like a pretty dry, direct sound as opposed to the first record, which is cool, but it is
Very kind of reverb heavy, where this one I think we're kind of almost going through that like straight ahead, close to like almost Rain and Blood production, where it's just a band in a room with clear guitars, not a lot of processing afterwards, Mm-hmm. Trying to capture kind of just directly what we're playing rather than trying to add too much of an atmosphere post-production wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much of that was based on the fact that you guys have been together for a bit at this point and are better as musicians?
I would definitely say that's the case. Just learning about how production and recording actually works just through the process of doing it a lot. And also kind of figuring out what works for a particular band. Because we've all been in bands before that have recorded, but I think stylistically what you want out of a production always kind of changes a little bit depending on the style of the band and kind of what the song demanded. And because we wanted to have a little bit more of a these songs kind of speak for themselves a little bit more and focus on the songwriting aspects of the band, it felt appropriate for the production to match that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So The Deader the Better will be out on Friday, May 13th through Creator Destructor Records. Tell everyone how they can order the album. What's the best way to get it?
The best way to order it is pre-ordering it through creatordestructor.com, or you can visit our Bandcamp or Instagrams at cartilage_gore at Instagram.
Friday.
Sunday.
And
Yeah, that's what I got.
I understand Creator Destructor has a few limited edition vinyl versions of this album coming out.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Got it in this purple mint color on the vinyl, and then like a blood splatter bone, and then a sickly yellow and what was that other color? Got yellow and orange of sorts.
It's listed as mustard and magenta.
Who doesn't love mustard or magenta?
And if people want to follow Cartilage online and trade Crypt Creeper voices or go to a monster truck rally with you guys, what's the best way to do that?
Well, the best way to do that is on Sunday. Now you can find us Cartilage SF as a keyword, San Francisco, on Facebook. So there's that. And then we also have Twitter. Whoa, we're on Twitter now, baby. Check us out on Twitter at cartilage_gore. Or if you like that Instagram, it's totally not trying to be like TikTok with their reels. You can check that out at cartilage_gore. Or follow our Bandcamp. I think it's, oh shit.
It's cartilage underscore at for Instagram. Sorry, what was it?
Oh, it's Cartilage Gore for Bandcamp.
We know what we're doing. We promise.
Do you guys want to say anything about the appearance you're making at Northwest Terrorfest?
Oh yeah, we're excited, baby.
Very, very excited.
We're very, very excited. This was a festival we were going to play, supposed to be in 2020. We were really looking forward to it. So yeah, we're super excited. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic lineup. Very honored to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is it exactly?
Seattle, I believe.
Which we love the Pacific Northwest. I've had a lot of great shows up there. The scenes up there have treated us very nicely, both Seattle and Portland, so we're excited to come back in a big way and play with such an incredible lineup.
Very cool. Is there anything else you guys want to say?
Thank you for all the fans who are, supporting us by buying merch, coming out, and also just jamming on our tunes. And to all the new fans, welcome to the family.
Anyone else?
I mean, if you get the chance to see us live and you haven't yet, definitely come out because I think you'll have a lot of fun.
Ria?
Keep watching horror movies, keep eating good food, and listening to blast beats.
Excellent.
Sunday at the Cow Palace.
Excellent. Thank you guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
headbangers? Wasn't that one a real smash? Well, until next time, Fright fans. Ears looking at you.